And there we go. And we are ready to begin a whole minute early.
No way.
There we are.
Hi.
Hi! Welcome to Torn Book Club. On this, the 20...
Oh, sorry. That's my alarm that tells me to turn on Torn Book Club.
Oh my god.
I have an alarm.
That's awesome. So this is, what is this, March 22nd? Yes. And...
Let's go with that.
Okay.
21st?
No, 22nd according to what I'm seeing on my computer.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. And we are beginning part two of our huge discussion of the Silmarillion.
That's a nice cover.
It is. I like it. This is the new edition that just came out. They actually redid Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Silmarillion, and Unfinished Tales all in this minimalist style, and they all look great.
Very nice.
So, and with me is Suzanne,
Also,
the Button Lady.
Also known as Button Lady. And with me, I brought Iluvatar, Benji, and I brought Melkor. Melkor's watching you, so just look out.
Melkor is adorable.
That's where we'll start.
Yes. So, as you may recall from last week, Suzanne threatened to come on the show with a bunch of dolls to help illustrate all the different Valar and Maiar, and I said, come on and do it, and lo and behold, she did.
I did.
There is a whole box of
Yes.
dolls with name tags over here, and we will get to them throughout the show. What are some of these comments going on here? Everybody's saying that her copy has the elves awakening under the stars on the cover. Ooh, that's a good one. So who do we have here now? We got our regulars. We got Temple, Ava, Erebandi, Lady Rowan and Dwina, and Infinite Possibility, who is Eve. So hello, Eve. Temple saying Melkor seems a little too happy. That's how he gets ya. That's how he gets ya. So before we get too much into the Silmarillion, we have, of course, our book of the month, which I'll remind everybody is Middle-earth Madness by our own theonering.net staff. And we'll be discussing this on April 5th, which is not next week, but the week after. And we'll have a whole bunch of the authors from the book on the show.
Fantastic.
So that'll be fun. And
I think they're pretty up on the Silmarillion when you touch upon the Silmarillion. Are you going to touch upon the Silmarillion on that show or skip that week?
I'm going to skip that week. We're going to focus
on Middle-earth Madness.
On Middle-earth Madness, because there's a lot in that.
Okay.
It's a lot of essays about the Hobbit movies, behind-the-scenes stuff, interpretations, analyses, stuff people liked and didn't like.
Okay.
And what I like is that it only focuses on the first two Hobbit movies.
Okay.
And there is a very positive review of the movie, and there's also a very negative review of the movie side by side. And I'm really glad that that's in there.
Okay. Yeah. No, I like that too. I like to hear both sides, even from fans.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I have a love-hate with the Hobbit movies as well.
Oh, me too, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more love than hate, but there are definitely parts that I really don't like.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so Middle-earth Madness, April 5th. But for right now, the Silmarillion, and this is what I'm going to be doing as we go through the Silmarillion is, and this is just for my own personal edification, is I'm going to be breaking the plot down by separate film trilogies, or what I feel would make good film trilogies. And so this first one that we're doing, I call the Creation Trilogy.
Dun dun dun!
And we're going to be going through what would essentially be parts 1 and 2 today. And then part 3, the climax, will be next week.
Ah.
You're going to have to wait. So we agreed first we were going to do previously on the
Okay.
Silmarillion.
Fantastic. Okay, Melkor wasn't there yet.
No.
Previously on the Silmarillion, there was Iluvatar. I'm going to pronounce names wrong, and Josh will correct me because he knows.
No, I won't, because I'll pronounce them wrong too.
No, he won't.
It's Iluvatar, however you want to do it.
Okay, that's this guy. This is Benji, and he's Iluvatar. And he was hanging out, and he was a god, and he was bored. And he said, you know what I need? I need friends. Where'd I put him?
Right there.
Right there!
There.
And this is, how do you pronounce this?
The Ainur.
The Ainur, essentially angels. So he created a whole bunch of these. There's only 2 here, but there's like 40, okay?
Yeah, there's a good, like, hundreds of them. Really.
Yeah, really, there's hundreds. So there's 2 here to show multiples. Okay, so he says, hi guys, now you're my friends, but I'm in charge, okay, just so you know I'm in charge. Okay, that's fine. I want you to sing for me because I'm lonely. Here's some music, here, have some music sheets, and now you're going to sing, okay? And you're going to sing for me, and everything's going to be beautiful, okay? Okay. And then the Ainur started singing. They started singing, la-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da, la-di-da, la-di-da.
And then Melkor comes in and starts going, twinkle, twinkle, little star.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
Twinkle,
Stop! Okay. He says stop, so everybody stops. And then he says, okay, start again. La-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da, la-di-da, la-di-da.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, I wonder where you are. Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
That's kind of what happened. He did this 2 or 3 times.
2 times.
I saw 3.
No,
okay.
2.
I'm going to defer to him. So that's what happened. And then Iluvatar said, you know what you did? Here, look behind this curtain. Woo! And it's the world. Could you show the map of the world?
Oh, yeah. Actually, where is
It's right.
Where is
there.
it? Actually, no, that map of the world is not accurate yet.
Okay. Then he showed them the world. And he said, see what your music made? And they said, whoa, that's really cool. I want to go there. Can we go there? Oh, now it's gone. Ooh, it's gone.
That was just a vision.
That was just a vision. You can't have it yet. But there it is. And let me start it. No, it's starting. And so a whole bunch of, hold on. A whole bunch of gods. Where's my thing?
I don't know. You got it over there.
I'm looking for the
Valar.
Valar. Oh, there they are. Then the Valar all went down and said, hey, let's hang out down there because
Now,
it's cool
of the
there.
hundreds of Ainur, only 14 of them actually went down and became Valar.
Yeah, these guys hung out with Iluvatar.
But a whole bunch of others did come down with them, and they were called Maiar.
Oh, yeah, and the Maiar come too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and here they are, and the Maiar come too. And so they came down, and then Melkor says, I want to own it all. So he comes down too, but he wasn't the helper gods. He was kind of, I want to own it all god. So they all went down, but he's not really one of them. So that's why he's god,
not considered a
but he's
Valar
not a
or a
Valar
Maiar.
because he wasn't supposed to.
He's just Melkor.
He's just Melkor. He just wants to own it all. Okay, and so they all got down there, and Iluvatar said to, where is he? Let me pick a big doll for this. Iluvatar said to Manwë, Manwë, and he said, you'll go down there, but you're in charge. He said, okay, I love you. You're the bestest god ever. Thank you. He's a brown noser. It says on here.
Yeah, he kind of is.
Yeah. Sulimo,
yeah.
Sulimo, king of the Valar, brown noser, and god of air and wind. There he is. That's why his hair looks like that.
And he says, don't worry too much about the signs. We can't read them that well anyway.
Okay. That's why I'm saying it as well. Sorry about that. I had a feeling that
she put a lot of effort into these signs.
I had a feeling they wouldn't translate very well on screen, but I thought I'd make them anyway. Okay, so he comes down, and he said, well, you're my brother, don't you? No! I'm going away to a little corner in the world, and I'm going to screw things up. Okay, so there was the music. It created the world. The world started, and a whole bunch of them went down. Not all of them. There's still some angels up in heaven with Iluvatar, and he's still around, but he just kind of, you know what? I'm gonna go take a nap, and you guys are in charge. So you guys are in charge of the body. It's kind of what the Christian God does. But no, did I say that?
Keep it clean.
Keep clean. But that's what. Are we up to date at that point?
We're kind of up to date, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, because where we go from here is we go into the first part of the first chapter of the main portion of the book, which is the Quenta Silmarillion.
Okay.
And the first two chapters we're going to go over are of the beginning of days and of Aule and Yavanna.
Fantastic.
And so in the beginning of days, it starts with what is called the First War between
just the first one.
Between the Valar and Melkor. And the way this whole thing plays out is the Valar are busy building Arda, and they're spending a lot of time in the section in the central continent, which they call the Middle Earth. See, that's where it comes from, and it's one big continent, and you see that's why that map isn't accurate yet.
It's not accurate yet. Okay, can't show it.
Yeah. So they're busy building up all the mountains and delving out the lakes, and Melkor is just going in and messing everything up as they go along. They build a mountain, Melkor strikes it down. They carve out a canyon, Melkor fills it up. And this back and forth keeps going and going and going until a latecomer joins the party. And this was a special Ainur who was watching all this from afar in the heavens, and he sort of thought to himself, you know what? I can take this Melkor guy.
Well, some of it was like, Monway said, Daddy, Melkor's messing everything up. Could you help us out a little bit? Okay, son, I'll help you out. I'll send a friend. And then Monway, strangely enough, becomes... Ready?
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't.
He doesn't become him, no.
Oh, well, he does. The doll does. But
okay. Yeah, okay. And then he brings down a new Ainur joins the fray, and his name is Tulkas.
There he is.
That guy. And that's his picture up there in the corner.
Now, what I wrote here is something we discussed on the way here today.
Mm-hmm.
His second name is Astaldo, but I wrote last night a little like Thor.
I would say a lot like Thor.
Because he loves a good fight.
He loves a good fight. He's really into it, and he's very happy about it. Like, one of the first things that Tolkien says about Tulkas when he comes down is that he's laughing. And so he is just getting severe joy out of kicking Melkor's butt.
It reminds me very much of the scene in Avengers, if you've seen Avengers, where Hulk starts hulking out on the helicarrier, and Thor decides to be part of it, and he ends up in one of the bays, and he's doing this. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Come at me, dude.
Yeah, it's like that. But another analogy that I was making is, if you were to put it in high school terms, Tulkas he's the popular jock. He's the guy who everybody likes, everybody's behind. He's like, go get him, Tulkas. And Melkor is the weird kid he keeps beating up.
Boom.
Just so you know, Tulkas, you hit a cute puppy.
That's okay. That's what I like to do.
So
come on, puppy, fight me.
No, I'm going to go over here.
Actually, there was a lot of that going on because
there was because Tulkas really did beat the snot out of Melkor.
Melkor was very afraid.
And yeah, Melkor was very scared of Tulkas, and he kept retreating and retreating and retreating until he finally just left Arda altogether.
Now, on the map that I saw, and obviously you'll correct me if I'm wrong, the map that I saw, I just had it. I saw
Utumno, yes.
Utumno.
That doesn't come into play quite
yet.
yet.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
So Melkor leaves, and thus begins the bliss of Arda. I think it is. or no, it's the spring of Arda.
Okay.
And this is when everybody is finally able to really get down and dirty and build up Arda the way they want it. And the two people who are working the most are Aule, because he works mostly with the earth, which is what they were really focusing on. And Eve is making the point of Tulkas is James Potter and Melkor is Severus Snape.
Yeah.
That actually kind of works.
Yeah. I don't see Tolkien as the ass as much as James Potter was supposed to be, though.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Like James Potter, there was some malice in James Potter.
Yeah.
Tulkas, he is just blissfully ignorant, and he is just loving the sport of it.
Yes.
So Melkor is gone. He's gone off into Ea, which is the heavens, and after they're done building everything, they've created their own little domain on an island in a lake, and I cannot remember the name of the island or the lake to save my life.
Okay.
Go to the book.
Go to the book. I highlighted this last night.
Okay.
La di da di da di da di da.
It's too far. Sing to yourself, people.
La di da, la di da.
Okay. The name of it was Almarin.
Okay. I was on the right page. My eyes were just not finding it.
Yeah. So, and so there, what is Eve saying? She's saying it's not a perfect parallel. I don't think James Potter was quite as much. Yay, fighting is awesome. And yes, that's very true. So Almarin is where the Valar were living, and they were having a celebratory feast, and Aule and Tulkas, who were they had been working so hard through this whole time that they decided it was time to take a rest. And that's when Melkor decided to come back. And
hey guys, we've been working so hard, it's time to take a rest. Let's go to sleep. Everything will be fine.
Or will it? What could possibly go wrong? So I should mention that while they were building everything up, they also created the lamps of the Valar. And these were placed on two far sides of Middle-earth.
Oh, I see why you don't want to show this, because it shows this as well.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
see.
And these were basically the light of the world. They illuminated all of Arda.
And the size we're talking about here is like a northern continent. Like, put one in Canada and one in Mexico and it lights up the whole thing. Or even one in the bottom of South America and it lights up the whole thing.
Exactly.
And then there's the, like, at the equator on Earth where the lights mix.
Mm-hmm.
But Melkor was busy hiding off in some darkness.
Yeah, he comes back to Arda and sets up his domain, because he realizes that part of what hurt him last time was the fact that he was out in the open.
Can I go back just for a second?
Sure, sure.
When the Valar all came to Earth, they were beings of spirit. And they didn't actually have form. When they saw that little vision of elves and men, they took a form similar to that, but greater, because, we're gods.
Yeah, and they kind of more, they were modeling themselves more after elves.
Yes, but better, because they're better. The other thing they did was Ilúvatar allowed them to choose their sex.
Mm-hmm.
So the sexes that they chose, male and female, were of a personal choice, as opposed he actually writes that in there, where they made their personal choice as to what sex that they chose to profess themselves as.
But they also did do an even split.
Yeah, luckily.
Luckily.
Even though a couple of them end up remaining alone in that sort of...
Ulmo never takes a wife, Nienna never marries.
Now, there are good reasons for that, because Ulmo being god of the seas, he's kind of got a big job and he's busy.
And he also doesn't like He doesn't like socializing all that much. He
No.
likes to go off and do his own thing.
And Yavanna, she cries a lot, so who's
Yeah.
gonna hang with that?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's her purpose. Her purpose is to find the grief and the sorrow in you to help you to wisdom.
Yeah. Of course, she hasn't quite gotten to that point just yet because we haven't gotten to a big destruction.
Oh well, yeah. That's still her job,
Yeah,
whether it's happened yet or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she still put that into the song when they sang.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. The reason that I brought that up is because Melkor couldn't decide what he looked like because his soul was so dark that darkness just clung around him. He was the only one that came down to Earth or across or wherever it is that couldn't make the conscious decision of what he looked like. He was stuck with what his soul was exuding.
Yes. And so where I was left off was Melkor had come back to Arda, but knowing that he can't fight the Valar openly, he instead decides that he is going to dig under and build his own fortress.
Hulk, sneak!
Hulk, sneak, tee.
Sorry, that's a riff track.
That's from Riff Tracks. Probably one of my favorite ones. So Melkor decides he's going to delve underground, and he creates a fortress called Utumno, and that's kind of what it looks like. It is, of course, a land of darkness, and in it he also builds his fortress, which he calls Angband.
I love. I'm not sure if it's actually mentioned in these chapters exactly, but what he's able to do there is he's able to corrupt life because it's even said about Lucifer that he can't create life; he can only corrupt it.
Right, and it's kind of the same thing with the Valar. They can create lesser beings like the beasts and the trees, but as far as like the main sentient beings like men and elves. And even dwarves, but we'll get into that in a second, and other sentient beings, those are solely under the purview of Iluvatar.
Benji.
And
actually, when he gave the vision, they got an impression of what they were going to look like, but didn't get a full concept of it.
And that's the thing. And Tolkien actually mentions this specifically, that since the Valar don't have direct control over elves and men, they never perceive the Valar as their masters, more as their elders.
Yes, absolutely. And the Valar see that as well.
Yeah.
They try to guide.
They can guide, they can try to influence, but Tolkien also points out that whenever they try to influence, it usually never turns out well.
Even if it's intended well.
And so the Valar are kind of limited in that way. Their primary purpose is to shape the world for the children of Iluvatar. And so we have Melkor, and meanwhile, while Melkor was out in Ea and no longer in Arda, he was corrupting, or it's not really corrupting, he was convincing various Maiar spirits to join him.
Yeah, some he would corrupt, and others he would say, hey, just as you are, you really will.
And it's also around this time that he goes to a Maiar spirit who was working for Aule at the time. You got him there.
I got him.
You got him. Not that one.
No, not that one?
Not that one.
The other one? Oh, the other one. There.
That's the one.
That's the one.
Sauron.
But he wasn't called that yet.
Actually, he was.
I thought when he was working for Aule, he was Myron.
Oh, that could be. But yeah,
I know you can't read it, but that's what it says.
Sauron was one of his earlier names. He goes by a lot of different names. Gorthar the Cruel. Myron was probably his original Maiar name. That sounds probably right.
Now, the key to that factor, though, is that Aule?
Yeah.
Aule, A-U-L-E. He is the maker god. He's essentially
yeah.
Vulcan.
He's a craftsman, yes.
Yeah. And I don't mean Spock. I mean Vulcan from Roman mythology.
Yeah.
So he's a crafter, and that's at his heart. Different from Melkor. Melkor is said to have a little bit of the gifts of all the gods. In other words, he has a little bit of the maker in him too.
Yeah.
The difference between those two, Aule loves to make things and share them. He loves to give his knowledge to others, whereas Melkor is like, no, I want everything for me.
Right. And because that's Aule's ability, and Sauron was a Maiar who worked for Aule, he is very much a craftsman himself. But he also has a gift of being able to change form, which comes into play much, much later on. I Stole the One Ring is saying, is anybody taking notes? All these dolls look the same. That's because she keeps using the same one.
I keep using the same one. Sorry. Okay. Here, let's make Sauron a little girl. How about that?
There you go. So anyway, back to Melkor. He's been hiding in Utumno, slowly gathering power to himself, and until the day when everybody's taking a rest, they're having a great feast. Aule and Tolkas decide to go take a nap. What is this? He was saying Tolkien took notes. It's called the Silmarillion. Sorry, that's as pared down and straightforward as it gets. It's very true. The Silmarillion is really more of a collection of summaries of stories. So anyway, finally after this, during this big feast, Aule and Tolkas, who are kind of the biggest threats to Melkor,
this is the only ones he really worries about, because all Manwë, all Manwë's gonna do is say, "Daddy, come help me."
Yeah.
But Tolkas and
Aule
are actually gonna go at him physical.
Yeah, and so he comes out of Utumno with his corrupted spirits, which are Balrogs, really, and they tear down
everything.
They tear down everything, but primarily, where is it? The lamps of the Valar, the giant lamps that have been lighting the world. He tears them down, and
he said mountains that they tried to make up, he pushed them down.
Yeah.
Lakes that they tried to fill, he emptied them.
Right, and this was his final big blow against them. Was he was going to darken the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so by tearing down the lamps of the Valar, he covers the land in darkness, but
he can move more freely.
Right. But more than anything, it also splits the world. Up to that point, the Middle-earth was one big continent. But this destruction actually splits the world into two continents.
There we go. That's the map that I wanted.
That's the map that you wanted. So
you see the lights there on what is that, the right side?
Yeah.
The light at the top and the bottom, sort of like at the Canada and Mexico. And those were the lights that he took down.
Yeah. And also that continent on the right, that's Middle-earth. And the continent on the left, that is Valinor.
The tiny little bit, I can't put my hand on top of it. Oh, wait.
Yeah. So, what is Temple saying? I have a free app on my phone called Middle-earth Index that could be helpful. You can type in any name of anything in Tolkien and it will come up.
That's amazing.
That is really important.
That was the first thing,
can come in handy.
That was the first thing that made me shy away from Tolkien. I had a friend, my first interaction with Tolkien was in a bookstore with a friend back in the 80s. And she said, "These are the best books ever." Mm-hmm. And I picked up Return of the King, I guess, and looked at the end and I said, "No." I looked at all the indexes and said, "No, I'm not going to be learning a new language to read this book." And later, 20 years later.
Yeah. I should point out in the Silmarillion, the story only goes up to here. This whole back section here, this is all lineage trees and pronunciation guides and indexes.
I was looking that up last night.
Mm-hmm. So, Eravani's saying there's also the Tolkien Gateway website, which is actually very good, and I have used it in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was using that a lot last night too.
Yeah. So anyway, the continent has been split, and the Valar, they go to the continent on the left.
There was a very big thing because Tulkas and Aule were ready to go after Melkor.
Right.
But like any situation where the bad guy is going off, the world was essentially exploding at the same time, and Arda's over here going.
They had a choice.
Guys,
either
come help! No, we're gonna go after Melkor. Come help! No, we're gonna go after Melkor.
Yeah. So
you need to come help.
So they had a choice. They could either save the world or destroy Melkor.
Yeah.
And so they went with
save what they could.
Save what they could. And so a lot of their efforts went into just salvaging the damage. And then they retreated to Valinor, to the continent of Valinor, and set up their homestead there.
They raised some mountains on the edges of it, called the Pelori.
The Pelori are actually inside the continent.
On the edge of the continent.
Yeah.
To make sure that people had a hard time getting there.
Right. And then they also set up their various homes, the mansions of the various Valar. Aule went created a cave home for himself because he loves the earth and he loves crafting from the earth.
Okay, and this is Mandos, otherwise called Namo, but everybody calls him Mandos. It's sort of like, hey Mandos, come here. That's not my name, but everybody calls you that. No, it's not my name. My name is Namo. Hey Mandos, come here.
Yeah, Mandos ends up taking the name of where he lives.
But his name is Namo?
Namo, yeah.
But yeah, he lives in the halls of Mandos.
Yes, and that is essentially where the spirits of the dead go. Or specifically the spirits of the elves, the dead elves.
I can't find
the
other one. The other one's Lorien.
Marfels just came in. Says, I just got here. Is that Button Lady by any chance? It is indeed. Yes, I finally got her on the show. And Temple is saying, wait, is that an adipose?
It is an adipose.
It is an adipose.
And it's signed by Euros Lynn and Julie Gardner and Russell T. Davies.
Okay. Russell T. Davies signed the butt. And this is Suzanne's own homemade adipose.
Yeah, my adipose.
So
Mandos,
he was saying Namo is made from the unwanted fat of the other Valar. See what you did.
I've got others to use over here too. So Mandos carves out a place for himself because he's in charge. He's like Hades. He's in charge of the dead, but not
only Mandos is much nicer about it.
Well, the thing is, it's actual. Literal. He's in charge of the dead. He's not in charge of punishing. He's not in charge of making it look like the Christian version of hell. It's supposed to be just the dead. He just takes care of the dead.
He's their custodian.
Yeah.
Until the time of their resurrection. But spirits of elves go to Mandos. The spirits of men go somewhere else, and nobody knows where they go.
Yeah.
But and we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yavanna, did she have a place of her own, or did she just hang out with Mandos a lot?
There's a mound right at the entrance of Valinor, and I cannot remember the name of it.
Okay, so she did have a place of her own.
That's primarily where she stayed. It was sort of like a grave mound.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the name of it.
She didn't just cry just to cry. She cried because...
But she also spent a lot of time in the forest of Lorien.
Okay, where she could get refreshed.
Yeah, because one of the things about Nienna is that she doesn't just cry and mourn for the sake of crying and mourning. She is also remembering, and she is also holding up hope and compassion through this mourning.
And also the idea of how being mournful will lead you to wisdom.
Yeah.
There's a scene in the written book of The Wizard of Oz where the Tin Man is walking along and he steps on a beetle or something and he starts crying because he says, he was concerned that since he has no heart, he can't feel bad for it. It was a little ironic because he's crying because the beetle is dead that he stepped on. And it's a little like that in that because no one else is there to mourn for this situation, the land being destroyed, a person dying, whatever, that's what her job is, to make sure that mourning happens appropriately.
And I mentioned it last week. There was a Maiar that she kind of took under her wing and taught compassion to, and that Maiar's name was Olorin, who you might know better as Gandalf. The Grey, and of course he is the Doctor.
Of course he is.
And but he doesn't come into play until the Second Age, pretty much.
Yeah, he just is known to go and hang out with
during the First Age, which is what the Silmarillion mostly focuses on. Olorin is in Valinor, in the forest of Lorien, sort of doing his own thing, minding his own business. Okay. And Marfels makes a good point. It's like Legolas not being able to mourn Gandalf when he fell at Moria.
Yeah, he's wondering what this whole death thing is all about.
Yeah, he's not familiar with it, and he doesn't know how to handle it. Like there's a really great there's the great scene when they're in Lorien and they can hear the elves singing a lament for Gandalf, and Merry asks him, "What are they saying?" He says, "I don't have the heart to tell you. For me, the grief is still too near." And that's kind of how Nienna lives every day.
Yeah. So there was a Nienna area, there was a Mandos area, there was a Lorien area.
Well, Nienna was mostly in Lorien, but she there was the Grave Mound, which is sort of like it's for everybody. But yeah, she would spend a lot of time there, and I guess we should also mention, where is it? The giant tower of Tani Quatil.
Say that 10 times fast.
Which is the easiest way, the best way to
they're watching everybody.
Yeah, the best way to describe it is it's the Mount Olympus of Middle Earth, of Arda, and it's the highest peak in Valinor, and on top of that is the highest tower, and on top of the highest tower is the Hall of Manwë and Varda, or God no. Elbereth.
Yeah, I didn't write it on here.
Yeah, I had to remember it. And because Manwë is also the Lord of the Skies, but because he's also King of Arda and he's the one who has the ear of Ilúvatar, he also keeps a watchful eye on all of Middle Earth.
Daddy, something's happening. The other thing too I thought was very interesting, because he's the Lord of the Skies and air and stuff, and she's the Queen of the Stars.
Yes.
He can see. She's the Queen of the Stars and light. He can see farther when he's with her.
Right.
She can hear farther when she's with him.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
And yeah, there are great pairings like that, like Aule and Yavanna. And we'll get into their little dispute later.
That chapter ended mean.
It really kind of did. He was kind of a jerk.
He was. We'll discuss that.
We'll discuss that, yeah. So they create Valinor, and they...
And by create, they're still creating. These mountains weren't there already. They shaped it the way they wanted to. It's sort of like moving into a new apartment and painting the way you want to. They raised...
Tani Quatil.
Yes, they raised those mountains to be that high so that he could see all of Middle Earth from there. They put up the gate of the Pelori Mountains all the way around the land for that reason of keeping people out, or at least slowing them down.
Right. And all of this is in preparation for the coming of the children of Ilúvatar.
And they keep on waiting because they want to meet them. They're very excited.
They know roughly when they will come. But they don't know where.
Yeah, they're not all knowing. Only this guy is all knowing.
Yeah.
He knows what's going to happen. He's not telling.
Yeah.
You just got to deal with it.
And even the vision that he gave the Valar, only goes up to a certain point.
Yeah.
It doesn't unfold the entire history of the world from beginning to end.
Yeah, because even the Valar, they don't know what's going on. Even the Ainur that are still Ainur that are still hanging out with Ilúvatar, they don't know either, unless maybe something's going on. We don't hear about what's going on in heaven anymore.
Actually, I think Ilúvatar isn't in heaven, because heaven is Ea, which is sort of like the existence. I think he actually, I could be remembering this incorrectly, he exists beyond that in the void.
Okay. Well, he can go back and forth.
He can, and he does. He will intervene rarely, and only in very specific circumstances. And he actually intervenes in one circumstance that we'll get to. So basically, while they're doing this, they are building up. They're building up Middle Earth in anticipation of the children of Ilúvatar coming. And so we should mention Orome.
Orome. Okay.
Because he's one of the few Valar who will consistently come to Middle Earth. He will consistently leave Valinor and go to Middle Earth.
He's the guy on the horse.
Yeah.
Okay.
And his horse is named Nahar, and he's the hunter, but one of the things he's doing aside from hunting, like for sport, he is also
monsters.
Yeah, see all the monsters that Melkor created. He's also looking for the children of Ilúvatar. He's constantly on the lookout for them. And the two Valar who mostly leave Valinor and go to Middle Earth are Orome and Yavanna.
Yvonne. Tokus doesn't?
No.
No? Okay.
No. I Stole the One Ring is like, is that a bear?
It is a bear.
It is a bear.
It's the first stuffed animal I ever won when I was like 8 years old. Let's make this one Yavanna. It's a cute bear. There's Yavanna. We'll get more into her.
Yeah, we'll get more into her. And Yavanna is the goddess of the trees and the lesser beasts. She's the one who raises all the trees. She's the one planting the seeds for all of the plant life in Middle Earth.
And she needs to tend to that.
Yeah, she's always tending to that. She's always planting seeds in the areas that Melkor has corrupted to try to win them back.
Yeah, she comes back to Manwë several times and says, we need to do stuff over there.
Yeah.
And we need to go after him. And Manwë's like, not yet.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is Yavanna is constantly going to Manwë and telling him, we need to take care of Melkor. The children of Ilúvatar are coming, and we need to clear the road for them. And Orome, he's doing a lot of the road clearing himself, and Yavanna is doing a lot of the road clearing, but she's constantly going to Manwë and saying, we need the help of all the Valar if we're gonna do this. If we're
you
gonna
guys
get
are getting a little too complacent over here.
And they are. They're once they go to Valinor, they kind of dig themselves in and dealing with it that way. And Ustreamer1770 is saying, did Yavanna design the Ents? Yes, and we're going to get into that. Spoiler. I Stole the One Ring saying, who's cuter, Melkor or Yavanna? You know what? That is a good question. So this chapter called "Of the Beginning of Days" ends with a rather cryptic description of the children of Ilúvatar, the men and the elves. Now, elves come first.
They're constantly called the firstborn.
They are the
firstborn. That's really critical in something that's about to come up.
Mm-hmm.
The elves are called the firstborn because they're firstborn.
Right. Now, technically, they could already be there, just sleeping.
Yeah, or unfound.
That comes later. But they're the first of the children of Ilúvatar. And they're modeled primarily after the Ainur and the Valar.
Yeah, Iluvatar actually says that they will create the greatest beauty
Yeah,
in the world.
and that is their purpose. They're there to create beauty, and they are blessed with they are immortal. When and if when their time on Middle Earth is done, they are welcomed into Valinor.
Now, here's the key. The thing is that that fate, going to Valinor or being immortal, because even when they die, they just essentially travel to the halls of Mandos.
Right.
So
Because while they live forever, they're not invincible. They can be killed.
but they are always tied to the world.
Right.
And that's why they have a greater affinity for the world in many cases, where they're living in concert with the world and with nature, because they are always tied to it.
They're very much a part of this world. Men are very different.
Yes. And sometimes it seems like they don't respect the world, the earth, as much because they are apart from it.
And basically, the gift that they are given by Iluvatar is they have the ability to think beyond, to think beyond the boundaries of the earth.
A little bit like D&D, where if you take a human character, then all things are possible for your character. Whereas if you take another race, you only have a certain upper limit,
right,
to certain skills that you can only get to that point. Whereas humans have all possibilities within them.
Right, and yeah, so the men. They have this ability to think beyond, to reach beyond, to desire beyond the boundaries of this world. And so when men die, they don't go to Valinor. They don't go to Mandos.
They're not tied to this world.
They're not tied to this world. They go somewhere else, and nobody knows where.
Just Benji.
Yep. and this is specific. This is specified by Iluvatar. This is how he wants it. And because they go elsewhere, and because they seek for elsewhere, they have a much shorter life. And
because they have a greater gift.
Right, they have a much greater gift. And because their purpose is not tied to just the earth like the elves are.
Now the thing is, like most bad guys, as a bad guy, you want to make anything good that's happening seem like something bad. So often, if you've read The Lord of the Rings and not the Silmarillion, you might have read different things where it talks about the doom of men, and that's because of this guy.
Yeah.
This little puppy.
He
has changed the gift of men, that they're not tied to the world, into the doom of men, and contorted it into a negative instead of a positive.
Yeah, he contorted it so that rather than looking forward or seeking out possibilities, they're afraid of it. They're afraid of death. They're afraid of what lies beyond.
Fear of the unknown.
Fear of the unknown.
That's an easy one.
And that's Melkor's corruption. But where it ends with men is that wherever they go, and only Iluvatar knows where they go, they are eventually going to come back and be a part of the second music of the Ainur.
Sort of like how the Bible discusses it.
Yeah, which is
at the Revelations.
Which is the creation of a whole new world, an unmaking of this world, and a creation of a brand new one. And men are going to play an integral part in that.
As well as elves, as well as everybody.
But men primarily.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Men are the one who are going to play a big part in the second.
In other words, it's bridging the gap between Middle Earth and the modern world that we know.
Right. And so that's where we leave with elves and men. They still haven't been discovered. They still haven't been awakened. They're off in the future somewhere.
Okay. Yavanna is over there. Okay. So now we're going to go into Aule.
Aule and Yavanna.
Aule and Yavanna.
And this is an interesting chapter because, first of all, we see the relationship between two Valar in much bigger detail than we do any of the others. And Aule and Yavanna don't get along too well. I mean, like they're amicable towards each other, but there is a bit of a tension.
Well, he's nasty.
He's kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
Now, one of the big things that that Aule, one of the big things that Aule does in this is Aule is very impatient for the coming of the children of Iluvatar.
Because of his makeup in the first place, he was created as someone who loves to make things and loves to share them.
Yeah.
And that's how Iluvatar made him.
And he is so looking forward to meeting the children of Iluvatar and teaching them the crafts of the world and teaching them languages and teaching them speech and bringing them up and raising them as his own. But they still haven't arrived. And so he gets very impatient with this. And where is it? Yeah, here it is. He goes into his caves and he creates dwarves.
Because they're so cool.
Yeah.
But he just wanted someone that he could teach his stuff to.
Yeah, he wanted craftsmen that he could teach his craft to, and he did. And he taught them all this stuff. And he taught them smithing, and he taught them language. And then Iluvatar shows up.
What you doing? Nothing! I was doing nothing. I made them for you.
Well, here's how it goes down. Like, this is where Iluvatar finally shows up in Valinor, in Arda.
I'm gonna have this be the dwarves.
That creepy thing.
Tweety.
This is a marionette. You probably can't see it all that well on camera. It's a marionette
That looks
with
like
a Tweety bird head.
Yeah. We call it Vato Tweety because of the way it's dressed.
Good.
Barry's afraid of it.
Yeah, and understandably so.
These are the dwarves.
So Iluvatar makes some very good points to Aule. He says, you don't have the ability to create something like this. The dwarves right now are completely tied to you. If you ever get bored with them, they're just going to sit down and do nothing.
It's sort of like because they're not creatures of sentience, Aule actually has to think about them for them to do something.
Right.
As the second his thought is elsewhere, the dwarves will just sit there idle.
And Aule realizes this, and he's like, you know what? You are right. I was wrong. And I'm willing to, if you would be so kind, you could take the dwarves under your wing. But I understand if you don't want to. And in fact, I should just smash them.
Boom!
And so he picks up his hammer and he's ready to smash them. And this is the crucial point here.
Iluvatar in that second does a little magic trick. Ding!
And the dwarves become sentient. And he does adopt the dwarves, but he gives Aule certain conditions.
Well, here's the thing. This part I love because the moment that Aule picked up a hammer to smite them, that was the moment where Iluvatar decided, okay, I'll let them have sentience.
Because they start panicking. They start begging for their lives.
They flinch and they turn away from
and you can
fear.
see in this art piece, like they're flinching away from the hammer. They're not sitting there going, "Duh, with that."
Because if they didn't have their own sentience in that moment, they would have just stood there and been destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
But in that moment, because Aule was so deferring, or a word like that, had deference to Iluvatar in that moment and said, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it.
But
because of the way he came off in that moment.
But it's more than that, because Aule, before he takes the hammer, he does offer the dwarves to Iluvatar, and
he apologized well.
He apologized well. He said, "I am so sorry. You are absolutely correct, and I wasn't thinking." And he offers the dwarves to him. He
actually says, well, I am just as you made me, so it's your fault.
Yeah.
I am just the way you made me because
I am as you made me, Lord.
I just want to teach people the things, and it was so hard to wait.
And so Iluvatar, if Aule had not offered them to him, then that would have been different. But he did, and so when he picked up the hammer, Iluvatar says, "I granted your request before.
Yeah.
I've already granted your request. They are my adopted children now.
But
I
will not suffer them to be born before the firstborn, because they're first.
Right.
Put them to sleep.
So he takes the dwarves, the 7 fathers of the dwarves, and puts
7.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a reason. So he the 7 don't come into play ever again.
No, what was 7 dwarves? Snow White and the 7.
Yeah, gotcha. So, and he places, they go to sleep, and he places them in various caves throughout Middle Earth. And then enters Yavanna, his wife.
Hey, honey, guess what just happened to me?
Actually,
it's really cool.
Actually, no, he doesn't tell her. She finds out through Manwë.
No.
Yeah.
No. Sorry, I read this last night.
Okay.
He goes and tells her.
Okay.
And she says, that's really cool. Cool for you, but what about my stuff?
Yeah.
And then she goes to Manwë, and without giving away the whole dwarf situation, she says, well, what about my stuff?
Yeah, because one of the things that that Yavanna brings up is that the dwarves are craftsmen, and they're going to want to tear down the trees to build stuff.
And so, without compromising her husband, she goes to Manwë and said, hey, how about the children of Iluvatar? Aren't they going to tear down some trees? I love my trees.
Because that's the other thing that Aule says to Yavanna is he's like, well, you know, the elves are going to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
And she had never even thought of that before.
Yeah, and then she, she's created these things because she loves them too. And she essentially asking Manwë, could she have anything that does not suffer the dominance of others?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I'll think about it. Daddy?
Yeah.
Daddy, what's going on?
He doesn't do anything without consulting Iluvatar first.
Daddy, what's going on with that? What? And it actually says he woke up later. So
yeah.
he went to sleep and woke up and said, hey, I got your answer.
He had a vision.
I got your answer. Tolkien uses a couple words, and it essentially means the flora and the fauna.
Right.
And
and yes,
he says, what would you hold back? What would you say?
What do you prize most of these things?
And she essentially says, well, the flora can run.
No,
the fauna
can run. They can take care of themselves. They can run away. But the flora, they sit there totally out in the open, totally unable to defend themselves. And of the flora, my favorites are the trees because they take so long to grow, they live for so long, and if they ever are taken down, they're never mourned.
Unless they bear
unless they bear some kind of fruit.
Yeah. And so, okay, well, you can have some shepherds. What are the shepherds? Everybody in the chat room say it at once.
Ents. And so Iluvatar creates the shepherds of the forest for Yavanna, but he also gives the fauna their own special guardians, the eagles.
Yes,
these are
kind of interesting because at that moment, Yavanna was saying, hey, remember when we were singing the song? I sang that part where I wanted a protector of my trees. And when he went to sleep and had a vision, he was like, oh, you're right, you did. It's like he could see the song a little clearer.
Right.
And he said, but since I just saw it, it's like saying, since I just read the book, since I just saw it, I'll have you know that you and I were singing together for a little bit too, and so we have a little shared common place as well. Using the air and using your animals, we got the eagles together.
Yeah, and Yavanna's saying, great, I will build these huge trees for the eagles to stay in.
No.
And he says, no, they're going to go live in the mountains.
Yeah. So deal with Aule for your homes for your eagles.
Yeah. So, and so Yavanna goes back to Aule and says, well, took care of that.
And then Aule.
And then Aule says the jerkiest thing he could possibly say.
This has to be
He's
quoted.
like, she goes in and she says, well, there are now shepherds of the forest, and they are going to protect the trees, and the elves will have reverence to them.
And he doesn't even look at her. He just continues working.
He's busy working on his smelting.
Nonetheless, they will have need of wood.
And that's the last line of the chapter.
Yeah, that's the last line of the chapter.
So Yavanna has gone through this whole big thing where she's trying her best not to out to Manwë that Aule has created dwarves.
She's protecting her husband.
She's protecting her husband, and she's going and she goes to Manwë and she goes through this whole big thing. She's like, we're going to create shepherds of trees. We're going to create
She
the
went through
eagles.
the right channels rather than making something behind Ilúvatar's back.
She did all of this the right way, goes back to Aule and says, it's taken care of, and Aule's like, yeah, whatevers. He's like, yeah, whatevs. So, like, that's their relationship.
Yeah.
Like, it's an interesting relationship. Like, I would say they play off each other well.
Mm-hmm. Because they're both makers of things. She creates the plants, and he creates the things.
He creates the earth, and he creates other things.
Oh yeah, the other thing too that Ilúvatar mentioned is that because of the situation, because of how the dwarves are created, there will often be strife between my children and thine.
Yes.
And the dwarves always defer to Aule as their god of gods, because he's the maker of things, and that's what dwarves like the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Oh, Rovandir is having a bit of trouble. Stuff was stolen from her basement.
Oh.
Hence why she's here late. I'm sorry to hear that, Rovandir.
Sweetie, it's all going to be up on YouTube. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And really, like, anybody who comes late, don't worry. All this is going up on YouTube, and you can watch it at your leisure. But, so that brings us to the end of
these two
chapters. And also, essentially, what would be the first two parts of the creation trilogy. Mm-hmm. And the third part, which will involve the children of Ilúvatar and what happens with Melkor, we'll get into that next week.
Oh, wait a minute. We didn't touch upon the one thing. In Valinor, when they were setting it up, it's very important because they still didn't have light.
Oh, darn! I can't believe I missed this.
So,
my God.
Yavanna, who does the growing things thing,
goes
to the center, and for some reason it's called the Ring of Doom even then.
Yes, and
why?
I sort of.
What are you trying to say?
I thought the Ring of Doom, it was called that after what happens, but apparently not.
Apparently not. Let's build something in the Ring of Doom. That sounds like a great idea.
To be fair, Tolkien's interpretation of Doom is more fate than it is like death and destruction.
There was a goddess who was Bear, who was the spouse of Mandos, who takes care of the dead. She's the weaver, and some people would align her with
prophecy,
Athena, because Athena was a weaver, but she's not really Athena. She's more the fates, because she's more with the tapestry of life and man and how the world turns out, rather than Athena.
But we're talking about Yavanna and her other big contribution to the world.
So let's take this one away.
Which are the trees of Valinor.
She called everybody to the center, and everybody's watching, and she's singing and singing and singing. And then two shoots come up in the middle of the Ring of Doom. Two shoots, and Nienna comes over and cries on it. To water it.
Yeah.
So between the two of them, they create these two trees.
These two ginormous, humongous trees.
One is silver, one is gold.
Mm-hmm.
And it said that because they're tall, it's the underside of the leaves that are silver. The silver tree, the underside is silver. The gold tree, the outer edge of the leaves are gold.
Right.
Okay. And they both have a wetness. Like the silver tree has dew, and the gold tree has rain.
Yeah.
And that liquid is kept in vats by Varda, the queen of the gods, and she hoards them because she's crazy. But she just keeps it because you never know when you need a couple vats of light.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she also uses them to create the stars.
Oh, that's right.
Hence why she is the goddess of the stars. There. And that helps spread the light throughout the world.
Now, these two trees, the silver tree comes first and starts the day, and it shines for 7 hours. In the last hour, it wanes as the gold tree comes up. So in that hour, the light of the two trees is mixed, and they say that's the most beautifulest time of the day. And then they do that twice.
But because there's the constant repetition of blooming and retreating, blooming and retreating, and each one exchanging and going between each other, that's how the count of time begins.
Because their day was then devised to be 12 hours long.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's 6 hours and then it starts to fade. So it's 7 hours because it's that last hour it's fading.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one goes for 7 hours as well, but that they have that overlap hour. So
Mm-hmm.
a whole day is considered 12 hours.
Right. Whether or not that translates into an hour of our time,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know.
Because before that, there was no count.
There was no
days.
count. There was no time. It was just
They're
everything
gods.
happened.
They sleep when they need to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
They
there was time, but they didn't record it and they didn't keep track of it.
Yeah, but the trees, the 2 trees are a big deal. They're a really big deal. You have to pay attention to what happens to the 2 trees.
Yeah.
Actually, it even says that. Talk while I find what it says.
What about the 2 trees? Okay. So, and I can't believe that we
skipped that over.
We skipped this whole thing because the chapter is called "Of the Beginning of Days."
Yes.
Which is all about the trees of Valinor.
Well, it's not all about that.
But I mean, the beginning of days is the beginning of time, and the beginning of time is the trees of Valinor. So we basically skipped over what the title of the chapter was about. Because, well, okay, in our defense, there is a lot that happens in a very short space of pages in these chapters. Okay, the entire chapter of the beginning of days in this version of the Silmarillion is 4 pages long. 4 pages for all of what we had just talked about. Oh no, sorry, that's Aule and Yavanna. Beginning of days is maybe twice that. 8 pages. So it's 12 pages altogether. We've been talking for the last hour about 12 pages of text.
I can't find the actual line because the line is stated very nicely, but it's essentially the 2 trees about which all the days of the Eldor are intertwined.
Right, and it's very true. Everything that happens from the first age all the way up to the 3rd age, something from these trees of Valinor plays a part in it.
Yeah. Forever.
For everything. Even all the way up to the Lord of the Rings. And even beyond the Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
So Andrew Gray is saying, could it be that the 12 hours translate into the 12 months? It could be.
Maybe.
It could be. That's certainly a possibility.
Andrew Gray is a teenager, and
Yeah.
I met them some years ago after one of the parties. They gave me a ride home, and I gave him and his sister a schooling on the Silmarillion in the car on the way home.
Oh, God.
And
You poor kids, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It was kind of like this, I just didn't have the dolls.
Uh-huh. Yeah, pretty much.
But I made a point of telling Andrew that that's what we were discussing today. But even if I'm not here, you should still tune in because he's going to be doing this week after week after week.
Yeah, until we finish the whole dang book. And we're clearly only doing it 12 pages at a time. And there's about 300 pages in this whole thing.
Yeah, there's a lot to go through.
There is a lot to go through in this thing.
I'm going to need more dolls.
Yeah. So where we leave this off is the trees of Valinor have begun the count of time. The Valar are living in Valinor, mostly keeping to themselves, with the exception of Yavanna and Orome.
What they termed the spring of Arda is over.
Right. The
When
spring of
Melkor
Arda is
destroyed
over. We've entered into the beginning of days. Aule has created dwarves.
And put them to sleep. They're not the firstborn. But they kind of were, but they're not.
Yeah, I mean, technically they would have been born first because they are conscious for a minute.
Yeah.
Before
but apparently in that minute, because it says in that hour, that's when Iluvatar came up behind Aule and said, "Hey, what you doing?"
Yeah.
But yet he still already taught them language.
Yep.
He still already taught them smithing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, how do you do that in an hour? Because days weren't counted yet.
Yeah, exactly. It could be an hour, it could be a minute, it could be a year, it could be 1,000 years.
Again, very much like biblical time spent in many cases.
Yeah, that's I don't want to say it's arbitrary, but it's more fluid.
No, it's not arbitrary at all. Tolkien was always taking, my personal experiences. I'm more familiar with the Christian creation myth than I am with others.
Mm-hmm.
I have some knowledge of Greek and Roman, not so much with the Norse, and
Mm-hmm.
very little with Egyptian. But there's so many more religions in the world, and Tolkien knew more than I do. But he was pulling from all this stuff to put it together into a cohesive creation myth that still rings true of a creation myth born of this planet.
Right.
Because it's taking from everything. And
right.
That's a great reason why I love it.
Yeah. And yeah, that's one of the reasons I like this so much, is because, first of all, I love the fact that the creation of the world is music-based.
Yes.
Because music itself is so organic and yet so structured.
And they continually say the music that throws through Ulmo,
mm-hmm.
the god of the seas.
Right.
That he also never forsake Middle Earth,
right.
because unlike Poseidon, for instance,
mm-hmm.
he's not just the god of the seas. He's a god of the tributaries. He's a god of the rivers.
He can flow through
lakes.
into the rivers and everything.
And
he can get everywhere.
He can actually pick up secrets that the others can't, because he is everywhere. Anywhere there's water, he's there.
Yeah, and also the waters contain pieces of the music of the Ainur more than anywhere else on Earth. So while Manwë
more pure.
While Manwë has a direct line to Iluvatar, and Iluvatar is able to clarify bits of the music for him, Ulmo he's surrounded by it at all times.
Mm-hmm.
So he is constantly seeing the bigger picture. And that comes into play throughout the Silmarillion. How he is he doesn't show up often, but when he does, it's usually to dole out some very crucial information.
We didn't touch on, there was one other thing that was part of those chapters too, is one of Ulmo's Maiar, one of his personal assistants,
Aulë. And we talked about him last week, actually.
Oh, okay, because he was actually, Aulë, very much like Tulkas, who loves a good row, Aulë loves storms, because he was in charge of shorelines.
Yeah,
but he loved a good storm.
Mm-hmm.
And Melkor actually sidled up behind.
He took advantage of that.
Yeah, he said, "Hey, you like a good storm? Make some more storms over there.
Yeah,
I'll make some more storms over there.
But,
make crazy storms over here."
But one of the things they did was he enticed Aulë to create storms without the command of Ulmo.
Yes, and that didn't turn out well. But like Aule, like the Maker God that created the Dwarves, he was able to break free of Melkor's control and subjugate himself and say, "I'm so sorry." And also his wife calms him down. Yeah,
and that carries on through and his wife, whose name escapes me.
Uinen.
Uinen, yeah. Throughout the history of Middle Earth, mariners would tend to appeal to Uinen to rein Aulë in.
She could control him.
Yeah. To keep Aulë from making storms.
That's the thing too. Like Aule, he actually recovered from his bad spurt of doing something naughty. Mm-hmm. Unlike Sauron, who stayed.
Yeah.
Who left Aule and stayed with Melkor.
Yeah. And Sauron, not only does he stay with Melkor, he becomes Melkor's chief lieutenant.
And they say that he was only second in evil because he served evil and didn't serve himself.
Right. And so when you look at it from that perspective, the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings is actually taking place in the breather space between the two great battles of Middle-earth, mm-hmm. which is the Silmarillion, which is the battle for the Silmarils, and the eventual second coming of Morgoth and the unmaking and the creation of the second music of the Ainur. So the Lord of the Rings is the downtime.
That's when things are
Wrap
calm.
Your head around that a little bit.
That's when things are calm.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. So everybody's talking about your dolls now.
Oh.
Temple's saying maybe we need to send Josh and Suzanne more dolls.
Yeah, I think I need more dolls.
Have you used all of them?
I used them all.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I didn't use this one very much.
Yeah.
and I used what's his name, the doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and I used Bato Tweety.
Yeah, which we should use as sparingly as possible because he will give me
creepy.
nightmares. Yeah,
I
he's very
put him
creepy.
I put him under the covers at home and let the boyfriend unmake the bed when he's going to bed.
Now that's just mean.
Like looking at the horse head and the god body.
That's just mean.
He's had nightmares about Bato Tweety.
So before we go, I do want to talk about one of the things that I found very interesting, and it was something I've been thinking about and sort of interpreting the Valar and their relationship with Melkor. And one of the things that I brought up on the way over here is, and I think I might have mentioned it already, is especially primarily with Tulkas and how. If you were to look at it in high school terms, Tulkas is the jock who everybody loves, and Melkor is the weird kid he keeps beating up. Now, between those two high school tropes, which one is more likely to turn into a supervillain?
Also, you mentioned that his wife, because there were a couple of the goddesses that didn't end up seeming to have jobs per se.
Yeah,
and his wife is one of them.
Yeah,
and what you said about her.
Well, she is the dancer. I think her name is Nessa. And it's pretty much like the jock. She's very beautiful, but she spends most of her time just sort of dancing around. And it's sort of like the jock dating the hot cheerleader.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, Nessa really doesn't do much other than dance and be pretty.
Yeah, she could run as swift as the deer, they said, but I didn't see a job given to her. Like
Not really.
In charge of something.
Not really, no. And it's also possible that she just came down
just to hang out.
Just to hang out, because Tulkas was also a latecomer to the game. He didn't really have a specific job given to him. He took it on himself.
Yeah. I refer to him as the Russell Crowe of the gods.
Yeah.
Fighting around the world. If you saw that South Park episode.
He's just he comes down and he's like, I am here to kick ass and chew bubble gum. And we haven't created bubble gum yet.
Maybe that's Nessa's job.
Yeah.
She needs to create bubble gum. She needs a job.
So but one of the things that I found interesting is like the more I think about it, the more I sort of like feel like Melkor's descent into darkness and hatred is very much the fault of the Valar.
Well, that's classic. That's classically a typical fiction.
Yeah.
The thing is, it was in him though.
It wasn't him, but
because he couldn't take joy out of like Aule, who could create things and be joyful about them, and then other people could create things, and he would say, "Hey, that's really cool." Melkor couldn't look at someone creating stuff and like it.
Yeah.
He would only hate it because
it wasn't his.
Because it wasn't his.
But this, I want to go back to the Ainu Lindale. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation.
Probably not.
Where Melkor is described as having the most gifts, of having the most wisdom, of being the most skilled and most treasured of the Ainur.
Very much like Lucifer.
Yeah, that Iluvatar creates. Now, one of the most telling things that I noticed in the music of the Ainur is that while Melkor is being dissonant and disruptive,
a share in all the gifts of his brethren.
Right. Melkor wants to rise himself up above all the Ainur. He wants to show that he is their leader.
Like Lucifer.
And so he creates louder, more chaotic music, trying to drown them out. And the other Ainur, they get louder and louder to combat him. And it's not when Melkor is getting loud that Iluvatar shuts it down. It's when the other Ainur try to go against him that he shuts it down.
That's very good. That's very, very good, because I remember seeing a story once. It was a real Ghostbusters cartoon story.
Okay.
And it was about the fight between good and evil. And they translated it to a baseball game. And the baseball game, the bad guys were cheating. And so one of the Ghostbusters was complaining, hey, they're cheating. And the umpire had explained it to him. They're evil. They cheat. That's part of who they are.
Mhm.
They can cheat because that is who they are.
Right.
If good cheats, then evil wins.
Right.
Because that's not who they are. They've become evil by
Right.
cheating.
Right.
Good cannot cheat.
That's a really good way of putting it. But the other thing is also in the second theme, Iluvatar has integrated a lot of what Melkor added in the first theme
Mm-hmm.
to sort of give it some more flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And even there are points in the creation of Arda where Omo says to Iluvatar, Melkor is ruining everything with this snow, and he's freezing my waters. And
That's such a great scene.
And Iluvatar says, "Well, look at the ice. Isn't it gorgeous?
Yeah.
Look at what he's added to you.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how much color and texture and stuff you never even would have thought of."
Meanwhile, Melkor goes, "Don't!"
Well, the way I see it is like Iluvatar is really trying to show the Ainur and the Valar the value of what Melkor is doing, and they are not having it.
Mm-hmm.
Like throughout the whole thing, they are not willing to put up with any of Melkor's changes.
Something that was said about Paul McCartney and John Lennon was that even though they fought like brothers, kind of like Manwë and Melkor, McCartney said afterwards that he found that he was the most creative when he was trying to oppose John Lennon.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's probably
and
it.
If you've seen the movie
and that's
Whiplash,
Melkor's strength. Yeah.
Yeah, if you've seen the movie Whiplash, there's some of that idea in there that when you put creativity to the nails to creativity, then it can be more creative.
Mm-hmm.
When you can squeeze it out harder.
Right. And so like my whole point with this is that while the Valar don't see it, Iluvatar sees the value of Melkor.
Well, he made him. He knew
he
what
made
he was
him,
going to do.
but he's also trying to show the Valar the value of Melkor.
Yeah.
But the Valar, they want Melkor gone. Like they don't want him just beaten back. They want him out of Arda. They actually expel him from Arda.
Shh, that's next week.
No, it's not.
No,
because that happens. That happens when Tolkas goes after him.
They couldn't expel him.
Well, they beat him back so much that he leaves Arda.
Yeah.
Expulsion, yeah, that happens much later. And the reason I bring all this up is because I wanna put that idea in your head, because when we get to the end of the Silmarillion, months from now, I'm gonna revisit that and bring in my own speculation of what happens after, what this second music of the Ainur actually is.
Very cool. I'm excited.
But we're not going to get to that until the very end.
Okay.
So we got a lot of time to go first.
Okay. Cool.
Streamer 8314 is saying, I read somewhere that since Eru did the original song, Melkor's role was predetermined anyway.
Well, I would think so, because Eru kind of knows everything that's going to happen.
Right, he does. He knows.
He's not surprised.
He's not surprised. He's more like a.
He's like a GM.
Yeah, but he's giving Melkor also a greater ability to, even if he doesn't realize that he's part of a greater plan, he gives him the ability to feel like this is his own thing. Like he is the individual who is greater than all.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I was thinking too while you were talking that Iluvatar is very much like a GM, where he says, "Okay, guys, now you create the story." Whereas there might be parameters that Iluvatar is imagining himself and creating himself. There might be parameters to the end of the abilities of what you can do, but here's some ideas. Go to it, and he wants that creative spirit that's coming from outside of him, and he wants to be surprised.
Yeah.
So whereas he's not surprised that Aule goes and makes the dwarves, I don't think he would be surprised at that. He wants to see how Aule is going to explain himself.
Yeah, because I'd like to think that it was always Iluvatar's intention to adopt the dwarves, but he doesn't do it until Aule offers them to him.
Yeah.
Temple saying it's like how it's hard to appreciate something unless you know what it's like to not have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and so like this is why I find Melkor such a fascinating character because like I would say that a lot of his descent into darkness and hatred, which happens after he leaves Arda the first time, because up to that point he's just being disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
He's
angry.
He's angry
that they have all this stuff and
he's angry and disruptive, but it's not until he leaves Arda that he finally descends into a real darkness and a real hatred of the Valar. And I sort of like see this as like where he goes from being the weird kid nobody gets into becoming a supervillain.
Yeah.
Because when he comes back, he is rearing for battle. Like he is where is it?
Looking for a picture.
Looking for a picture. Looking for a picture.
And it's
not there. Where is it?
Uh-oh.
It was. Oh, there it is.
Culminating in this.
Culminating in Utumno. And like this is his expression now. This is the only way that he can really before he could add to the world. Now all he can do is take from it, and all he can do is corrupt it.
What is Eve saying there? I can't quite read.
Okay, Eve is saying, it seems to me that evil is a kind of ultimate greed, a greed that is so all-encompassing that it can never see anything lovely, rare, precious without wanting to possess it. A greed so total that if it can't possess these things, it will destroy them rather than chance that someone else might have them.
Yeah.
And a greed so intense that even having these things never causes it to lessen one iota. The lovely... I'm guessing this is a quote from something, but I'm not sure what because it runs out there.
Very nice. Very well put.
Yes. And it's true. And you sort of see like his initial intention of corrupting and making his own, which does come from a place of greed. It becomes something more. It becomes twisted. It becomes darker. It becomes more hateful.
I've seen that also in real life depression. When people have depression, it's hard for them to be joyful for other people's gains and positives in their life because they just think about what they don't have. Right.
And I see that too, and I've experienced that with many people, and I've been that way myself.
On occasion, I have too. I was watching a role-playing game on Geek and Sundry, and just Thursday, and I was actually angry because all the people in the chat room were complimenting the GM, and I was like, my GM's better than that. I like my GM.
To be fair, your GM is pretty amazing.
Yeah. You will never see him.
Yeah. I was tempted to invite him to come over today, but I'm like, he won't.
No, he would be good for the gaming day that you already did.
Well, we can do it again.
Yeah.
There's nothing saying we can't revisit gaming. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm going to leave it today. So next week, what we've gone through is pretty much what I would call the first two parts of the Creation trilogy, the first trilogy of the Silmarillion. And so next week we'll be going over part 3, which is Melkor's first downfall.
The coming of the elves and the captivity of Melkor.
Yes.
Now, are you doing 2 chapters or 1?
It depends on how much we get through. I need to
because the next chapter is Thingol and Melian.
Yeah, Thingol and Melian, and that kind of gets into a whole new story.
Yeah, that's 2 very different stories.
Although I might go into it just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
But for right now, the main portion of it is going to be Chapter 3 of the Quenta Silmarillion, of the coming of the elves and the captivity of Melkor. Because this is going to end this portion of the story and then take us into the next portion where, lo and behold, the Silmarils finally appear. About dang time, right?
And one of my very favorite characters from all the books finally gets a mention.
Which one?
Well, one that does something.
Okay.
I won't say.
You know, the guy who did the thing that time.
He drove that blue car.
Oh, okay. Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so next week will be the climax of the Creation trilogy, and so it's going to be a good big battle, and some really.
The dolls will fight each other.
And yes, so that will be next week, and we'll see you all then. Thank you everybody for all the great commentary that's been going on. Andrew
Be able to
Gray.
catch up on that on YouTube. Sorry.
Yeah, for those of you who are having buffering issues, I apologize. I know that this is a constant thing, which is why I put everything up on YouTube so you can watch it again at your leisure.
And I desperately want to see the conversation, but it's hard to actually have a conversation for
Yeah.
the camera and then catch up on you.
And you all are always chatting away, and I love that. But it's hard to it is hard to sort of keep up with it.
We're missing up.
And I know I missed a lot, and I do apologize for that. But that doesn't mean don't stop chatting. I love when everybody's chatting.
Because I'm going to be watching this whole thing again, so I can see what you guys have to say.
And there was some great stuff, and I saw that there were a lot of newcomers this time around. For one, Eve is in the chat this time. She was Infinite Possibility 8. And Northrunner, who I know is a regular with Torn Tuesday, but this may be one of the few times I've seen him here. So welcome, Northrunner. Good to see you.
And Andrew.
And Andrew, and his mother Priscilla were both here.
Oh, okay.
And Dwina, saw her here, and Temple, Eru. God, can I go through everybody who is here? Let's see here. Oh, let's see.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah, and Jeffrey Lindsay is here. Good to see him.
Anybody named Johan? I invited a particular person, but he's on.
I do not see a Johan.
Okay.
But Temple and I Stole the One Ring is here. She may have left already. And Erivandi is either here or not anymore.
Is Suzanne in there? Because I set my boyfriend up to watch, but I guess he didn't.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
You're still there.
Okay.
Whether or not he's actually watching, that's a different story.
That's him. Might be watching Man from Uncle.
And Marfels and Ravandir, and I'm going to miss other people, but I want to say, I just want to say thank you all for a wonderful chat, a wonderful spirited chat going on here. And it's probably going to continue after I sign off, but we'll keep going. We're going to keep going through the Silmarillion. If you are so interested, I posted an article on the One Ring yesterday.
Oh yeah, it's very good.
Basically giving an outline and summary of the 16 characters from the Silmarillion who are currently in competition in our Middle-earth March Madness going on right now.
Now be warned that there will be spoilers there that we haven't discussed here.
There are many spoilers in there for stuff that will happen in the Silmarillion but hasn't yet. And also round one for March Madness has already ended, so half of those characters have already gone away, but you can still read about them.
It's a very good article. I read it and loved it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So thank you, Suzanne, for coming. Thank you for bringing all the dolls.
Thank you.
I'll see you all next week for the conclusion of this story. And also, remember that the book of the month is Middle-earth Madness. And yeah, that's it for me.
Okay.
Anything else you need to say? Any final comments?
No, I think we did very well. And
I think so. We went through a lot. Even though it's only 12 pages of the Silmarillion, there's a lot going on.
I think I was afraid that I might talk over you too much. Again, you being the host, and I shouldn't do that. I was glad that I was good.
You were good. You were very good. Okay, so thank you all very much. I'll see you all next week, and never stop reading.